Hello and welcome to Crafting Some Ambience. It's lovely to see you here. Disclaimer: please cook, bake, craft, create, use tools or equipment, etc. in accordance to manufacturer's instructions and with appropriate safety measures or protective equipment. My way may not always be the best way, so double check on safety before proceeding. This video is a vlog rather than a tutorial. No health advice will be given. Always consult fully qualified medical professionals. Stay safe, stay kind, and have fun creating. Thank you very much. Products shown on Crafting Some Ambience. At the time of uploading this content, I have had no products or services given to me as sponsorship to promote or to review. I either buy things myself under my real name without mentioning this channel, or a family member might have given me a birthday or Christmas gift. All views given are based on my experience at the time of purchase or using the item or service. Sometimes unforeseen circumstances happen during manufacture, packaging or delivery that may differ from my experience, which I feel empathy to you for, but I cannot be held responsible for. Thank you. Stay kind, stay safe, and enjoy crafting. Hi and welcome back to Crafting Some Ambience. I'm Kerry, I am from the UK, and here we make crafts, miniatures, home decor, lifestyle, things like that. Anything that really makes us happy and brightens up our world. It's really lovely to see you if you're returning. I hope you've had a wonderful week and I hope the weather's okay. If you hear a little bit of wind today, I'm sorry, but where I am in the UK, there's a storm. So it is rather windy and wavy and rainy today. If you are new here, welcome. It's lovely to meet you. I hope you are also having a lovely week and are safe in these turbulent weather times. And if you like this video, please subscribe and come back and see me soon. So this is a bit of a follow-up video from the stained glass photo frame craft, and we're going to paint a picture to put into the frame. And I've gone in the middle of this piece of paper and everyone's going to be screaming how wasteful. I would have gone more to the corner, but I thought for filming, it's, you know, if you're trying to look down here instead of central. However, when I lift the tape off and cut that out, I do have a plan to use some of the outside for some bookmarks that can go into some birthday cards that I'm going to make. So if I can do that, not all will be lost. It is regular watercolour paper. I think this one was from Amazon, but I know that a lot of other places stock it. These watercolours are a very beginner palette to start experimenting. These were from Hobbycraft. So I kept the paper guide for the pattern that we used under the glass, because I thought, well, that is the perfect size for both fitting into the photo frame, but also the aperture that you're going to see on the picture. So I had drawn around. I've gone quite dark on the outer line because the watercolour paint won't go on that, because if you paint over a darker watercolour line, it's staying. With the pencil, that stays. I went really, really lighter on the middle for the aperture so that, you know, hopefully I can get rid of that. And then I've just done some masking tape around the edges, and I can just take that off and get hopefully a very satisfying crisp edge, so that I should have stained glass and a lovely picture in between. I'm going to go mixed media. I'm going to do a watercolour background, and then I'm going to do an acrylic house portrait over it, because I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we did a house portrait of the main dollhouse? So this moment is going to be very setting the scene, the background. So I've already wet the colours that I've envisaged using, just to get the watercolours receptive. I've seen that on tutorials before. De Winton paper company is on YouTube, and her videos are fab. She shows you all kinds. Sarah Eileen, Shada Campbell, Let's Make Art. So many excellent channels. So I'm going to start with a very loose blue. I've not gone mad. Might add a little bit of grey to it, because the sky isn't always completely blue, especially here up north in the UK. Might go for a little widdy bit more blue now that I've seen that. Yeah, a nice mixture of the two. So now we're going to go a nice loose grass area. And then we're going to go with a bit of a suggestion of a very far off distant tree line. So paler the further back I'm going. And again, it's all very impressionistic, and a little bit here, a little bit there. Just make that back one a little stronger. And then just one more in the foreground, just a little suggestion. Again, suggestion, not a shout. We're good at that here, aren't we? And when we're in the final stage, when we've painted, we can, if we wish, we can make it a bit more illustrative and put outlines and things like that in. But I think at the moment that is a nice background to then paint the house in the middle. I might do a little bit of a path in the foreground, as if it's leading up to the house. There we go, that's quite nice. So now we'll let it dry, and I'll see you in a bit. So we're back. We have our palette with white, black, 2 shades of green, 2 shades of brown, and a mixture of red, orange and brown to mix the terracotta and the brick colours. I've done a base coat already with the roof colour, the mortar colour and the white, just to give us a base to paint on. Otherwise it really will be a long video. So we're going to put details on the roof and the chimney pots and the weather vane at the top, and details to the windows and the bricks. And we're going to mix colours, and we're going to add a lot. And with the background being lovely and soft with the watercolour, then the acrylic on top not only covers the background, but it also gives the focal point being the house, which is what we're looking for with a house portrait. It is small, so I'm going for less is more with the details, so I don't swamp it and lose what we're looking at because it's too busy. If I did a larger one, I would absolutely go for full realism in every single feature. But with a small one, you've got to do less to make it still resemble the reference image. I did another one to test, and I put far too much detail in, so I've learned my lesson. Here's one I made earlier. So we've got all set up. We're just mixing some colours on our palette, and still just preparing. We're getting ready to hop in. Okay, so we're just going to do another little coat of white on some of these where it's gone a little wishy-washy, so that can dry by the time we're adding details to it. So it's on the features of the house, such as the sides and the windows and the balconies, and the tops of the chimney pots. And it was, with it being the palest colour, the most tricky to get a nice even coverage on, but it's looking really good now with a second going over. Okay, so we're going to go in with the weather vane. I'm going to make the general shape of the witch on the broom and the mechanism. If I go too detailed, it's either going to be massive and out of proportion with the house, or it's going to look horrendous and we're not going to know what it is. So I have just done the general kind of witchy hat, broom, little suggestion of a cat, triangle for a body. Now we're going to go in with some roof tile detail on the roof. Now, the first attempt that I did, I'd put way too much roof tile detail in, because I wanted to make sure that everybody knew it was roof tiles, because that's how my mind goes. It goes perfectionism and it goes photorealism, and on this scale, you just can't do that. So I am looking forward to doing a bigger house portrait, just so I can scratch that brain itch of having to be perfectly imperfect, as Shada Campbell says. You know, you can never get 100%, but I think between my OCD with symmetry and things and wanting it to look like it should, and my autism, which means this is what this building looks like, therefore it must look exactly like that. And a love of details, I can go too far. So this is a really good exercise again of just giving me a little mind wobble and making me go with, you know, you can't do everything, especially not if you want it to look like a cohesive piece. Here I am just putting a hanging basket in, realising that I haven't really left room on the other side. There are two in real life. So that is another area where I'm going to have to let go a little bit. I'm just putting the first layer of green in. I'll do some definition with a darker green later. Just a suggestion of brown just to denote the path that goes along there, because there's the main house and the basement, and then that area is where stairs can be taken away. So it just suggests that there's different levels. I'm going in with my bird feeder because I do like my bird feeder. I'm not going to do absolutely everything. Oh, and the bird house as well. I'm not going to do absolutely everything that I put outside the house because it'd just drown the piece. So I've just done a little suggestion there of things that I have outside. So we've mixed brilliant red, orange and burnt sienna to make a lovely terracotta colour for the chimney pots. Straight lines. We saw the chimney pots I made last video and they are simple, so that is perfect to paint. There's no massive ornate details to do. They're in. Here I did think that the colour was absolutely perfect for the chimney pots, but was a bit light and a bit orangey terracotta for the bricks. So at this point, to the mixture of brilliant red, orange and burnt sienna, I'm adding burnt umber, and I'm just doing it like a brush full at a time and mixing it in, just to make sure that I don't again go too far the other way. But I just wanted it to be warmer, darker, richer and more of that brick colour. So I am going in and out mixing, because I just want the difference between the two colours, and for me to be happy with it as a brick colour as opposed to a terracotta pottery colour. So in the end the mix was brilliant red, orange, burnt sienna and burnt umber. You could probably just use a darker brown and skip the burnt sienna, to be honest, and you'd have probably got a darker brown to begin with. But I was really pleased with the fact that I could do the terracotta first and then just darken it up. So it did take a while for me to be satisfied, bit by bit, because I was just doing it gradually, so I didn't, again, go too far the other way and have to work it back. wiped the excess paint off the brush when mixing and then rinsed it just so that there was paint on the tip of the brush just for that bit more precision, because if you have the paint clogging the bristles all over the brush when you first go in, you're going to splodge it all over your painting. And again, on the chimney pots, I'm going less is more. I'm doing a suggestion of a couple of rows or courses, as they call it, of bricks, but I'm not going overboard. I'm also not measuring or using a stencil. I want it to be loose and painted, and I want to embrace that, letting go of everything being exactly like a photograph, because that's not what painting, I mean, some people do it perfectly, but my level, that's not what painting is. Because I'm not at that level. I painted at school, then I painted very much craft projects. I'm very much at the beginning now of doing landscapes and simple paintings to do independent painting in full. I'm staggering the bricks between the rows. I'm also not counting how many rows of bricks there was on the house, which I was tempted to. No, that's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for loosey-goosey. I'm sorry about the shadows, but the light was above me in the kitchen, and unfortunately at times, so that I could see what I was doing, my head was in the way. Here I'm just demonstrating the little rectangles of the bricks, and that you make sure that there's little gaps in between so that you can see the mortar as well. Obviously not huge gaps, because otherwise, you know, there's too much mortar and not enough brick, but it is better to be able to see between the rows. And we're just being very careful not to paint over the details. I could have painted this and then gone over, but I think especially with the windows and the white areas, I'd have been doing coat after coat of white, with it being such a light colour to cover it, that it would have turned into a bit of a mess. So I just marked those areas in before I did the bricks, with the premise of, if I accidentally caught anything, I've got white on my palette, I can go over it, it's not the end of the world. Which is a very relaxed attitude for me. Doesn't usually happen. Usually it's, oh no. So we're going through each gap. Here I noticed there was just a little bristle being a little bit cheeky and a little bit naughty, splaying out. So on those bottom left two windows, there was just a little catch from a loose bristle. So here I'm just washing the brush, getting it all back together in one nice point for precision, and so it doesn't happen again. Adding bricks to the areas which are quite small before going in for the rows again. Again, make sure that each row is slightly offset from each other. Fill in the areas where you can see the basement. There are windows on the basement, but I didn't have the space. And that is another area where I've embrace the fact that you only have the space of the aperture in the stained glass frame, and that's what you've got to work with. So you have to make some choices that, you know, in an ideal world, if you had a whole sheet of paper to do it on, you wouldn't have to make those choices, but here we are, just covering those little naughty brush marks. And just helping that door a little bit because it looked a bit wishy-washy. I'm going in with some gold paint now and just picking up on letterboxes, door knockers, door handles, doorbell. All the door furniture. I haven't gone for precision, it's the area where they are, and it's a mark that shows that it's there, as opposed to, you know, for example, trying to do the back plate and the handle, and because you can, again, you'd either go massive or splodge. Here I am putting the window panes into the window in the attic, and then we're going to work through. Now, some of the windows there was room to do every single pane in. Other ones I could do the panes that fit. However, it then didn't make a mess of it all, and it gave that suggestion that it is a window, it has panes, it also has a frame, and kept that definition. So whilst mathematically there might have been another row of window panes, it looked better and clearer as a result. One thing I did notice was I quite enjoyed doing the repetitive little jobs like window frames and window panes and bricks. I'm just getting some grey on my palette, just so that I can just give the tiniest suggestions where the all white areas need a window ledge, or spindles on the stairs, or detailing in the door, or that there's shadow on the balcony ledges, so that you can kind of see one level of balcony from another. Because otherwise it was very much just a lot of white lines, and they were kind of like merging. There was no clarity of the features in the house. but I was just very careful with how much I went for. Here, there's just a little bit of definition there where the attic level begins. They kind of go out diagonally in two directions. So I just wanted to do that, and I just did a tiny bit round the tops of the chimney pots because with it being white against a light sky background, it wasn't really. It was kind of making the weather vane and the chimney pots float. Just adding some little spots on the path to kind of add a little more texture, but not, overpowering. Using different shades. I'm trying to be as random and spontaneous as possible. I struggle with that. I tend to like making things in patterns and symmetrical. So this was another really good exercise of being brave enough to have my brain itching and shouting at me to make it right and just going with it. Just adding some definition on those leaves. I'm going to add a little bit of grass. Obviously, I'm not going to make it look like they never mowed the lawn, but just a little bit of lawn detail. Just a few tiny light branches to kind of make it where the lawn becomes the shrub level of the garden. And a little definition between the layers, but again, not massive, just a little gesture of it. And again, it gets lighter as you go back, so that's the lighter green that I had. And then I didn't touch the top layer because that was then meeting the skyline and it was the furthest away. Doing a couple of little birds. Oops. Bit wet on that brush. Right, so we're going to dry it off. I dried the brush, dried it off. Went back in to give it the shape again. And then with the sky being so pale, I just used white to kind of, there's a cloud behind it kind of, rather than trying to go in with a load of blue and stuff, because it was a pale area of the sky anyway. And that just blended it out a little bit. And that's another thing that I struggle with when I make little errors like that. I tend to really criticise myself and really focus. Here's the one that I'd painted first. I put it in the frame so that it gives more of an effect while the other one dries, so that you can see what we're looking at. And you can tell that on the roof and the bricks. I went in with so much detail that it began to look a bit cartoony and a bit full and a bit of a mess. So I'm really happy with the other one, and I think I will definitely be reframing that one into the aperture for our house portrait in our stained glass frame. And I really am really impressed with it. Seeing them side by side as well is a really good exercise in not in comparison being mean to myself, but in where I improved between the two pieces, where I need to step back, where I needed to let go. So I really enjoyed this exercise.